About half of the human body's weight is from hundreds of muscles that are responsible for moving structures and internal organs. Muscle tissue throughout the body facilitates body functions by changing shape and length. These contractions cause movements that facilitate body functions. Skeletal muscles move the body by responding to signals from the nervous system. Smooth muscles in many organs throughout the body respond to hormones and involuntary signals from the nervous system. They contract and relax to contain substances and move substances through the body. Cardiac muscles responds to involuntary signals from its own conduction system. Heartbeats are the heart muscle contractions that pump blood. There are three types of muscle in the body: skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. Skeletal muscle is striated and responds to voluntary commands from the nervous system. Cardiac muscle, a special type of striated muscle found only in the myocardium of the heart, has branching fibers connected by intercalated discs that allow for synchronized involuntary contraction to maintain a constant heart rate. Smooth muscle is non-striated and expands and contracts to support digestive, respiratory, urinary, and reproductive processes. Skeletal muscles attach to bones of the skeleton and contract voluntarily to produce movement. Smooth muscles lines the gastrointestinal tract, respiratory tract, blood vessels of the circulatory system, urinary tract, and reproductive organs. The cardiac muscle, found only in the myocardium of the heart, contracts in response to signals from the cardiac conduction system to make the heart beat. The body's main muscle regions are the head, neck, shoulder girdle, back, thorax, abdomen, pelvis, hip, and upper and lower limbs. The muscular, nervous, and skeletal system interact to produce movement. Messages travel through the nervous system to the skeletal muscles that attach to bones throughout the body. The fibrous appearance of skeletal muscles is created by the arrangement of proteins inside the cells that form muscle tissue. Motor neurons of the nervous system connect with these skeletal muscles. Movement occurs through a series of steps. Impulses from the nervous system reach the neuromuscular junction. The neuron releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. It binds to receptors on the muscle and begins a chemical reaction within its fibers. The muscle filaments slide across each other and the muscle shortens or contracts. This action produces movement. In order to produce movement in the body, the muscular, nervous, and skeletal system interact in a process called muscle contraction. Muscle contraction begins when a nervous system generates a signal. A motor neuron conducts an action potential to its link with a muscle fiber. At the neuromuscular junction, a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine is released. This chemical binds to receptors on the muscle fiber. Acetylcholine receptors are chemically gated ion channels. And when acetylcholine binds, they open, allowing an influx of sodium ions into the muscle fiber. This stimulates the sarcolemma and generates another action potential that travels through tiny folds known as transverse tubules. The action potential reaches myofibrils within the muscle fiber. Surrounding the myofibrils are membranous sacs called sarcoplasmic reticulum. The arrival of the action potential triggers the release of calcium ions stored in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. They diffuse into the muscle fiber and the next phase of muscle contractions begins. When an action potential travels to a muscle fiber, a series of steps begin within the fiber that result in contraction. Muscle fibers are organized into units called sarcomeres that contain two types of filaments. Thick filaments consist of myosin. Thin filaments consist of actin. Eventually, these two filaments will come together, creating a cross bridge. In response to an action potential, the sarcoplasmic reticulum within a muscle fiber releases calcium ions. In response to an action potential, the sarcoplasmic reticulum within a muscle fiber releases calcium ions. These ions bind to the protein complex, causing it to shift and expose the myosin binding sites. The myosin head then binds to actin and the cross bridge is established. In the next step, ADP and phosphate are released. Their energy powers the movement of the myosin head. This step is called the power stroke. Actin moves toward the center of the sarcomere. ATP then binds again to myosin and it detaches from the actin. ATP breaks down into ADP plus phosphate and the myosin heads cocks back. Myosin heads continue to deactivate and reactivate. This causes the myosin filaments to pull together and slide across one another, contracting the muscle. Skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles controlled by messages from the nervous system. A layer of connective tissue called the epimysium protects each skeletal muscle. Beneath this layer, skeletal muscle tissue is composed of cells called muscle fibers that are grouped into bundles called fascicles. Capillaries of the skeletal system and motor neurons of the nervous system supply these cells. The proteins within a muscle cell are organized into units called myofibrils. Each myofibril is formed by a long paired chain of thick filaments made of myosin protein molecules and thin filaments made mainly of actin protein molecules, organized into repeating segments called sarcomeres. The ability of skeletal muscle to contract relies on the structure of these muscle fibers and the surrounding nerves. When a nerve impulse reaches a motor neuron, a chemical message passes into the fiber of the muscle, and the thick and the thin filaments of the sarcomere slide across each other to shorten the muscle, creating a contraction.